Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. If you guys didn't know, Black Friday is essentially upon us, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a gigantic shopping holiday that takes place just after Thanksgiving, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's a day of thanks in the US. Now that said, we have a huge bundle, or at least kind of decently sized bundle. In War Thunder this time around, it is from November 21st at 11 GMT all the way until November 28th at 11 GMT. And instead of 3 or 4 vehicles, which is what we normally get, we only have 2 vehicles this time around. This time we have the A43 Black Prince, which is a rank 4 British heavy tank. It's basically like a very slow, very heavily armored Churchill, as well as a P-61A-1 Black Widow, which is a rank 3 American strike aircraft, air defense fighter, kind of a mix of a lot of things. But of course in War Thunder it's just listed as an air defense fighter, which means that you get an air spawn with it. Now with that said, this pack costs $23 USD for both of these, plus a title which reads In the Black. Of course this title is in reference to the fact that Black Friday itself refers to when retailers go from in the red to in the black, meaning that they are now making money. At least that's kind of one of the origins for how Black Friday exists. Now bear in mind, this pack does not include Golden Eagles, nor does it include Premium Account. It's literally just for these 2 vehicles. So you are not getting anything but the 2 vehicles plus the title when you pay $23 USD. Additionally, if you already own one of these vehicles, regardless of if it's the P-61 or the Black Prince, the price of the bundle will be adjusted down depending on which one you own. I would imagine it'd be a little bit less of a discount, so to speak, if you own the P-61A and you do not own the Black Prince, but a little bit more of a discount, of course, if you already own the Black Prince and you're essentially only purchasing the P-61A. But with all that being said, believe it or not, I actually do own both of these vehicles, and I have used them a decent amount. So do I recommend purchasing them? Yes and no. These vehicles are both extremely unbalanced in some way, shape, or form, meaning that they don't really care so much about maneuverability, might be a good way to put it. They are much more heavy hitting than a lot of other vehicles at and around their BR, essentially both of them, being that the P-61A is fairly slow and has somewhat mediocre maneuverability, being that it's just such a big, heavy aircraft, but it has a very powerful armament, plus it has an automated turret that a lot of people use to actually dispatch of enemies. I mean, the top-mounted turret on this thing is phenomenal. Plus, again, those cannons that it has are pretty uncommon in the American air tech tree, and it's only 3.7 BR. Plus, it has the ability to carry 2 1,000-pound bombs, which is pretty nice. So in a close air support role, it's actually not all too bad. Even when using this thing in air RB, you can use it more or less as an interceptor, being that it does get an air spawn, which is pretty nice as well. And what some people do, and I've done before, is I fly up underneath bombers where they're less likely to hit you. I use that top-mounted turret, which is pretty chock full of incendiaries, not entirely 100% incendiaries, but it does have a good amount. And I use that, and I just kind of use this almost like a gunship to shoot down enemy bombers or attack enemy bombers where they're most vulnerable underneath. So it's actually a pretty fun time. But again, this thing will be eaten up by a lot of the lighter aircraft like Spitfires, Bf-109, even FW-190s, definitely Japanese fighters. The P-61 just does not have the capability to keep up with those things. It's just too damn slow, and more so, it lacks a ton of maneuverability. But again, as a strike aircraft, it's not all too bad for CAS, and it does a good amount of damage, obviously, to bombers and similarly unmaneuverable aircraft because, you know, this thing just isn't maneuverable itself, except, again, just don't get this thing in a dogfight no matter what you do, but at least you have a good turret that can help to defend you in those instances. Now for the Black Prince, this thing is incredibly slow, but incredibly well armored and well armed. So it's actually a few kilometers per hour slower than the Mouse. This is actually one of the slowest tanks in all of War Thunder, but it's got fantastic frontal hull armor and again an excellent cannon, which if you don't mind the fact that it has to have APDS to have its best armor pen, it's really, really good. You get upwards of around 270 millimeters of armor pen with its top shelf APDS, which is very, very nice at this BR and more or less guarantees a pen. And if you know where enemy weak spots are, but more so know where things like ammo racks and things of that nature are, like sensitive parts of an enemy tank, you will get kills very often with it. It doesn't have the greatest reload rate, but also it's not bad. With absolutely no crew points at all in reload, you're looking at around 7.1 seconds, but that can go down all the way to 5.5 seconds if you fully ace it. And in my instance, where I have it with an expert crew, I'm looking at around 6.1 second reload, which is pretty damn nice, especially considering that with this armor, you should have plenty of follow-up shots because you're probably not going to be pinned all that easily. So, I mean, essentially, this is one of those vehicles that will probably reach the battlefield well after the battle has started. I've had many instances where you reach the battle, especially if it's a very large map, and the battle's already half done. So that is definitely a problem with this vehicle. It kind of sucks in that regard, but once you actually reach the battle, assuming that you do not get flanked, this thing is amazing. Again, with over 150 millimeters of armor pen, if you properly angle this thing, especially with those tracks running interference, this thing can be a powerhouse on the battlefield. It just kind of sucks that you won't reach the battlefield probably until well after the battle has actually started. So do I recommend both of these things? Well, for 50% off, I mean, they're not bad, but you do have to realize, again, that they have very large and noticeable flaws. These are not at all balanced vehicles in that, again, basically both of them lack maneuverability, they lack speed, but they are heavy hitting vehicles and can defend themselves quite well. It's kind of funny how they're actually similar in that regard, in that they're both slow and have good defenses, but again, I guess this just kind of how this thing is. So yes, I do recommend them for $23 USD. It's a pretty decent deal, especially with a cool enough title that you get with it, but I mean, they're not really necessary, and I would not feel bummed out if you missed them at all, because quite honestly, they're not really necessary vehicles. They kind of feel like collector's vehicles because, again, they are so unbalanced that you might not want to bring them out all the time, especially if you already have well beyond these things with their respective tech trees. I mean, again, you have a rank 3, which is the P-61, and a rank 4 with the Black Prince. So if you've already collected far beyond this, if you've already grinded out far beyond those parts of the tech tree, then you know what, I might not even recommend them. But for now, I mean, they're not bad. Especially if you're grinding through the tech tree, you can have fairly effective vehicles in both of these that you use to grind through a good chunk of the tech tree. So again, they're pretty decent, but they're not good enough where I'd feel bad, again, about missing out on these if you just didn't buy them. So it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, they're good, but you don't really need them. So that being said, thanks so much for watching. If you guys don't mind, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. By the way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.